Hello, you keen, kindred, knowledge-craving connoisseurs. And that Kanpai call-out comes from me, Mac, bringing you the world of Japan's drinks on Kanpai Planet. But today, coming to you not from Tokyo, but from London and the Black Lodge, the home of drinks whiskey. I've been wanting for some time to step back from the usual bottle reviews, historical analysis, and in-depth interviews and just share what's been on my mind lately about the Japanese whiskey scene, because there's a lot happening that I think deserves some brutal honesty, and it's make or break for some players if they don't get it right. I wasn't quite sure how to begin this monologue, but then the universe gifted me an open goal. On the 20th of June 2025, ANA, All Nippon Airways, Japan's largest airline, announced that it would be releasing 3 bottles of Akkeshi single malt Japanese whiskey in a series called Hokusai North Colors. Now, Katsushika Hokusai was a legend, a woodblock print artist who was the man behind the iconic Great Wave off Kanagawa. I'm sure you've seen it. And Akkeshi are a distillery in Hokkaido. They're part of the Ichiro's Children wave of distilleries that began operation in the middle of the 2010s. According to the press release, the series was created from a unique concept. What if Hokusai had visited Akkeshi, boasting distinct flavors, aromas and hues? What those are, who knows? The 3 whiskies form a remarkable lineup expressing Hokkaido's landscapes and seasons through Hokusai's artistic lens. Now, as a huge comic book fan, I'm all for some Elseworlds reimaginings, so let's read on. Preserving Akkeshi Distillery's long-valued craftsmanship, which is a strange descriptor given that they started distilling in 2016 with no previous drinks experience. The new series takes a bold step, seamlessly blending whiskey with art and culture. Each of the 3 whiskies will be released in waves. I really hope that pun was intended. Allowing collectors to gradually complete the set. Beyond the superb taste, these highly artistic products captivate through their compelling visual design. Meticulously crafted, the packaging of each bottle forms a complete, striking image of Hokusai's renowned ukiyo-e print, the Great Wave off Kanagawa, from the 36 Views of Mount Fuji series. In this press release, there are no tasting notes, no mention of the age of the whiskies or whether they are chill filtered or natural colour. Just a lot of discourse about the labels, which rather unimaginatively are riffing on the most reproduced piece of Japanese art in human history. Oh, and they cost 34,000 yen each, which is about 170 British pounds or 230 US dollars. And the fact that they explicitly use the word collectors in the press release. I had my video introduction. Thank you for that gift horse, ANA and Akkeshi. Everything that is troubling me about Japanese whiskey was summed up in that press release. And if it's not bothering you, you haven't been paying attention. By the way, back in April 2023, I was invited to an event called Whiskey Lux. It was a series of presentations held to mark the 100th anniversary of Japanese whiskey, and it was a real turning point. I mean, it was the first time any of us had heard Suntory mention their arch rivals Nikka in a presentation. All companies were incredibly transparent and invited the sharing of the information that they were presenting. But there was one company that said explicitly that people couldn't share any of the information they learned, and that was, you guessed it, Akkeshi. So today I wanted to take the time to go through the key factors that will make or break the Japanese whiskey industry in the next 5 years and beyond. Transparency, pricing, quantity, and quality. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The simple fact that people still do not trust the category. Attempts to remedy this devastatingly embarrassing situation have centered around the Japanese whiskey standards issued by the Japan Spirits and Liqueur Makers Association, the JSLMA, standards which went into effect on the 1st of April 2024. This is something that I've followed closely for some time. In fact, the standards were released just after Kanpai Planet was founded back in February 2021 and formed the subject of my second ever video. These standards stipulate a definition for Japanese whiskey, which frankly is just plain old common sense. You know, it's liquid that's been fermented, distilled, and matured in Japan. One huge misunderstanding persists. These are voluntary standards from a trade association and not law. They have zero legal teeth. Only JSLMA members have to follow them. And even then, there are so many loopholes that you could still get away with pretty much anything you wanted to. Want to know how broken this system is? Just walk into any international liquor store and you'll find shelves of so-called Japanese whiskey. But those bottles are full of Scottish malt or Canadian grain or who knows what, lining the shelves with impunity. It's plain wrong. Every week, a member of the Kanpai Planet community sends me a photo of a bottle with some kanji on it or a picture of Mount Fuji on the label, any Japanese iconography that these guys can think of, asking me if this is real Japanese whiskey. Now, finally, there is some governmental pressure in Japan, and the JSLMA is scrambling to push for legal standards. A new logo mark has been proposed and is pushing for geographical indication status. But that's years away. The damage to consumer trust is happening right now. But it's not like this liquid, real or otherwise, is cheap. From 2021 to 2024, Suntory instituted 2 waves of brutal price hikes that took, for example, the price of the no-age statement Hibiki Japanese Harmony up by 50% and the price of Hibiki 30 up by 188%. Prices for pours of Yamazaki 25, Akkeshi 25 and Hibiki 30 at the tasting rooms of Suntory's distilleries have gone from 4,000 yen for a 15ml pour to 22,000 yen for a 30ml pour with no half shots available. That's about $150 US. What a lovely way to thank customers who have made the trek to visit Suntory's easily accessible distilleries. Not. By the way, Suntory have just announced a new Yamazaki 25 Mizunara cask bottle, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. It has an MSRP of $7,500 US. Suntory's CEO said in 2016 that it would take about 10 years for aged stocks to recover, but living in Japan, it actually feels that aged expressions on shelves at their RRP are scarcer than ever. This isn't a temporary shortage. This is the new normal. Let's take a look at Nikka, the number 2 whiskey company in Japan, who in 2024 celebrated their 90th anniversary, arguably in 2 ways. On the one hand, they released a 2,000 yen, that's about $14 US bottle called Nikka Frontier, which was a world whiskey. And on the other hand, they brought out the infamous Nikka 9 Decades, which cost a staggering 300,000 yen. That's about 2,000 US dollars. Sadly, the newer distilleries have decided to emulate the big players in the way of pricing, but without any kind of pedigree to justify those price tags. Akkeshi are the most egregious, but no one is innocent except perhaps Sakurao, who have managed to keep 2 flagship single malts on the shelves, retailing in Japan for around $40 US a bottle. So when your customer base shifts from drinkers to investors, you're no longer in the whiskey business, you're in the collectibles business. What's worse is that distilleries are actively encouraging this behavior. Lottery systems, limited editions, limited allocations, all creating artificial scarcity. And this just justifies, in their mind, their higher prices and also helps maximize profit for speculators. Together, they've turned Japanese whiskey into a commodity investment vehicle. Most of these bottles will never be opened. They're sitting on private shelves, while in many cases, actual whiskey lovers can't afford to drink the category they've helped build. Many of the bottles of Japanese whiskey I buy sit in an unsweet spot. They're too expensive to be casually enjoyed, too rare just to be opened on a whim, and not quality enough to be opened on a special occasion. I really cannot imagine anybody getting into Japanese whiskey right now. I mean, who could afford most of these? As a blind purchase, no less. But despite all this, the output of the category overall has exploded. In Japan, we've gone from 10 distilleries in 2010 to over 120 in 2024. The majority of these new distilleries are passion projects that will never achieve real, meaningful scale. Venture Whisky, the company behind the Chichibu distillery, has already expanded from Chichibu 1 to Chichibu 2 and is building a 2.4 million litre facility in Hokkaido because they understand that craft romance doesn't pay bills, volume does. The craft narrative is romantic, but the economics are brutal. Most of these new players will remain permanently lifestyle businesses or be acquired by larger players over the next decade, or just simply go out of business. Now, it would be all well and good if all of this was delivering a high level of quality, although it is difficult to see how any liquid's quality can match some of these eye-watering price tags. Let's take Nikka 9 Decades as an example. Let's just say that it was difficult for me to conceive that any company would choose a whiskey with that profile to represent such an important anniversary. And I've tried the output of many of these new distilleries, and I can tell you that in most cases it's average, and in some cases it's truly terrible. Big shout out to the Ontake Distillery's single cask sherry butt 3-year-old that was bottled by independent bottler TNT Toyama, which was, frankly, that left a lot to be desired, especially the desire that that liquid had never ever entered my mouth. And that viewpoint was shared by everyone who I respect in the Japanese whiskey space. So, where does that all lead? I do feel that Japanese whiskey has to find some points of differentiation, do some things that Scotch cannot deliver. At the moment, the strategy just seems to be to trade on the moniker Japanese whiskey and hope to heck that consumers just continue purchasing this stuff. The OG Whiskey Tube legend Ralphie talks about some of the industry players being delusional about their importance and their true value.
If we don't see the value, we ain't buying.
And that statement is absolutely 100% true. Consumers are voting with their wallets, and over the last 12 months, I've seen an increasing number of bottles on shelves which frankly would have blindly sold out a couple of years ago. Age statements from new distilleries, for example, the Shizuoka Summer 2025 United S 7 years, nice catchy title there, and the User 6 year, are efforts to be lauded. Congratulations to them on reaching those epic milestones. But that 6 years is around 20,000 yen a bottle, about $135 US. This is the issue where you anchor yourself to pricing for your NAS 3-year-olds. You have to make the price for your age-dated 6-year-old much higher. Shout out to Kanosuke for responding to market forces and keeping the prices of their Kagoshima exclusive local barley bottling, a category which normally elicits much higher pricing, in line with their standard single malt. And Sakurao continues to be a bright spot, showing that ripping off consumers doesn't need to be par for the course. Already joining their well-priced Toguchi range of genuine blended Japanese whiskies is the recently announced Sogaini, a genuine single blended Japanese whiskey which will cost 2,000 yen. That's about 10 British pounds a bottle. Here's what I'm thinking and hoping for the next 5 years and beyond. First, there's going to be consolidation. Not every new distillery is going to make it. Pride may mean that some people don't shut themselves down when they should, but market forces, they don't take it personally. The ones that survive will be those that find differentiation and build sustainable businesses, not those that ride a waning wave of enthusiasm. Second, innovation. With age stocks constrained for various reasons and prices high, we're going to see more experimentation with blending techniques, alternative maturation, and non-traditional approaches. Some of it will be marketing gimmicks, but some of it will genuinely push the category forward. Check out Ikawa's amazing work with wild yeasts. Some devastatingly good stuff is in their pipeline. Third, education. The times when Japanese whiskey sold itself just because it was Japanese are coming to an end. With these high prices and a maturing market, consumers are going to demand more. More knowledge, more context, more understanding of what they're buying, and clear reasons for why they should be paying 2 or 3 times what they would pay for a Scotch, which has a similar, or in many cases, higher level of quality. The days of the Japanese whiskey selling purely on that mystique are over, and transparency is going to become increasingly important. We're not just watching the evolution of a category, we're witnessing the birth of a distinct, mature Japanese whiskey culture. Is it perfect? No. Are there challenges ahead? Absolutely. But am I optimistic about where Japanese whiskey is heading? Whatever happens, I can't wait to see what happens next. Until next time, Kanpai.